Hey everybody, it's Tamara from Moogly, and it is April 27th, 2021, and we are here live. And today I want to talk about the Red Heart Pom and Tassel Maker. I have the pieces for it right here in front of me. We're going to be assembling it and using it here together in a minute. But this is a great tool if you want to make a bunch of poms or tassels all at once. Poms and tassels have been super popular over the last few years, and they just continue to increase in popularity. And I've seen lots of projects lately that call for lots of poms or lots of tassels. And when you make those individually, it can be really hard to get matching ones. So this is a great tool to help you have a matching pair of tassels or a bunch of poms that are all the same size and make them really pretty darn quick compared to making them one by one. So here are a couple of the tassels that I've made with this Pom and Tassel maker right here. You can see I made these both at once with the machine contraption tool. We'll go with tool. With this tool, I was able to make both of these. I mean, you have to, tie one string at a time, but really, I love how even they are and how quick they were to make. And then I was able to make all 5 of these poms right here, all at once on this machine tool as well. So today I'm going to be using what I used to make these samples, Red Heart Super Saver Ombre. You can see right here, it is really, really pretty. A lot of people ask about the difference between an ombre and a gradient. And this is officially an ombre. This one, they're all sort of in the color family. Now this one stretches the meaning of ombre just a little bit. Usually an ombre is different shades of the same color, if you will. So different shades of blue, different shades of green. Green and blue are, one of those colors, or 2 of those colors, I guess, where there's a little bit of blending there because you've got your teals and aquas. So you can kind of get an ombre with both of those in there. But a gradient is more, say, when you've got an orange that turns blue. 2 different colors, but they sort of blend together there in the middle. That's your gradient. So we're going to be using this color of Super Saver Ombre. It's called Liquid Teal, or excuse me, I thought it was called Liquid Teal. This one says True Blue. I may have switched the labels at some point. When you're using those yarns and you try and stick the label back on, I think I might have stuck the wrong label on this one. I think it's supposed to be Liquid Teal. But as you can see, with teal as the base, then you can kind of get both the blues and greens in there. So that's what we're going to be using today. So let's go ahead and pull the overhead camera here, or the hand camera in, and then we can switch. On a second. There we go. All right, now we've got the hand camera and a little bit of my hair there too. So this is what the Red Heart Pom and Tassel Maker looks like when it comes in a package, and you've got all these pieces. Now this is really great because it's a little bit easier to store than when it's all put together. And also you can decide maybe you don't want to make a whole bunch. Maybe you only want to make a couple, and then you can just leave out that middle section. So the way they connect is you've got these little sort of tab system underneath. So you can just put it together however many pieces you want, depending on if you want great big tassels or a whole bunch of poms, or if you just want a few, then you can leave that center one out. This particular one is a little stiff. There we go. Get that pushed together. And just like that, now you've got your pieces. And they do stick together there once they're put together. So again, you've got a couple different holes here, so you can change the length a little bit, depending on how many you want to make. I'm just going to go ahead and use both of those ends there. So you can see quite a bit longer when it's all put together. So first, let's go ahead and make some pom-poms. So I'm going to set aside I've got my cute little Sherman the Sheep yarn bowl here. I'm keeping my extras in. And we're going to pick up our end of yarn. Now what I like to do is start with a slip knot. So just as you would normally make a slip knot here. And then we're just going to slide that right around one end of our Pom and Tassel Maker. And then I can go ahead and tighten that up a little bit. So that's nice and secure on there. I'm not going to worry about that end. With pom-poms, you do a lot of cutting and trimming anyway, so that'll be taken care of later. And then we're just going to go around. Let's see if I can get my yarn in a place here where it wants to cooperate with me. I'm trying to make sure it all shows on camera here too. So we're just going to go all the way around and around and around. Now, however many times you go around, the thicker your poms will be. Let me move the location of this yarn a little bit so it's a little easier here. There we go. So the more times you wrap, the thicker your poms will be. And you can sort of just push the yarn down if it's getting in the way. Push it down on those pegs a little bit. But we're just going to keep wrapping and wrapping and wrapping. Around and around and around we go. And we don't want to put too much tension. You want it to be oops, going off camera a little bit there. You want it to have a little bit of tension, but you don't want it to be super, super tight either, because then the yarn will pull back in and try and shrink up when you do cut it. So let's just go ahead and make some small poms today for the sake of time. You'd want to keep wrapping, you know, for nice big thick ones, you'd probably want to fill this up pretty well. But when we get to the end, we're going to go ahead and cut our yarn. And then I like to go ahead and make another, oops, get that back on camera there, make another slip knot just to secure it to that second end there. And then you can pull that and adjust it a little bit so that it's as tight as your other strings. There we are. Now, officially, you're supposed to do this next step first, but I always like to do it afterwards because I always jumble this thing around and end up knocking them off anyway. So I'm going to show you how I do it. I'm going to pull these strings up out of the way a little bit here. So you can see I've got some space underneath. And then we're going to make our ties. So we need to make however many ties as we want to make poms, because this is what's going to hold our poms together. So since we've got little guys here, let's go ahead and make 4. So I'm just going to cut 4 lengths of yarn here, about a foot long or so, whatever you're comfortable with. And again, the bigger the pom, the more string you might want to cut. So there's 3, and there's 4. There we are. So I'll go ahead and put the scissors down. And then what you want to do is slide the little ties underneath. And you can count out however many spaces. If you want to make them totally even, you can eyeball it. Like I say, you're actually supposed to do this step first before you start winding around, but I find it a little easier to do it afterwards. So let's go ahead and just sort of get these on here, about 4 spaces or so apart. There we are. Alrighty. So you can see, there we are. We've got our 4 ties laid down. So now we can push these guys back down if we want to, a little bit closer to those ties. There we are. Now it's time to tie our ties. So what I like to do when I tie a knot like this that I want to really stick in my yarn, first of all, you need to use a strong, strong yarn. So if you want to make your poms out of something a little more delicate, make sure that you make your ties out of something stronger. Red Heart Super Saver is a great choice, something really strong in acrylic. You just don't want a yarn. We've all seen those yarns where you can give it a real sharp tug and just pull it apart, literally break the yarn. We don't want to do that. We want something really strong that's going to hold together for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and tie a knot. But when I tie this knot, I'm going to wrap this yarn around twice. So that's how we would normally do it if we were tying our shoes, right? But we're going to just go around one more time before we pull. And that will, believe it or not, just that simple one more wrap will make that knot stick so much better. So you can give it a really strong tug. And you can see it already doesn't want to come back out. But for the sake of tying it really, really well, I'm going to go under with that yarn. And then underneath with the other one, sort of switching their places a little bit. Get that pulled through. There we are. And then I'm going to do it again, just to make sure it's really tight. So once again, I've got my 2 ends, and I'm just going to start it just like if I were tying my shoes. And go around once, and then do it again. Just like that. And pull that really down nice and tight, and that will be a really tight knot. Then I'll do it again just to secure the knot, basically a double knot. There we are. So now I know that that little knot is not, no pun intended, not going anywhere. So then we just continue to do it with the rest of our knots. So I will work my way down our row of poms here. Again, I like to flip those around just to make sure I'm really getting it really well tied. You can see I do tend to slide it all over, which is why I tend to put these ties on afterwards. Otherwise, I just end up knocking them off. There we are. And you can try and keep it, you know, totally centered above that. I'm kind of going quickly today for the sake of time. Did I do my double? Easy enough to find out. We'll just pull it out and do it again. There we are. Now I'll switch those. 1 and then 2. And do another double knot. There we are. And then do it again to make sure that one stays until the end of time. There we are. And then we've got one more. Now, this will be part of your pom too. So if you want to, when you're planning these out, you need to take into account, you know, that you want the same amount on each side. So don't forget about your ends. But of course, with poms, we're always going to have to do a little bit of trimming with scissors afterwards anyway. So don't let yourself stress. Yarn crafts should be fun. So we'll switch those around again here. 1 and 2, there we are. And then get our last double knots in here. There's one. And you can give that a real strong tug. Like I say, you got to have real strong yarn for these. There we are. And there is that one. Get that end pulled really tightly there. There we go. Alrighty, so now it is time for cutting. So what we're going to do is we're going to be cutting right in the center in between those ties so that this will become one pom, this will become one pom, and of course, well, the whole thing here will become one pom, and then this end will be one pom. So some people like to cut it right on the tool. Other people like to remove it first. It's totally up to you. We can just remove those pegs. Get those right on out of the way. And then if you want to, you can go ahead and just pull out those slip knots so that you don't end up with a knot in your pom. There we are. And then we'll set that aside, lay out our strings here so we've got a good view. And then we just cut right in between. And you could take a tape measure and measure if you wanted to, but I'm just going to eyeball it today. And you do want to have really sharp scissors. And it's okay to take them just a few at a time. You don't have to cut through the whole pom all at once. There we are. So there's one. We'll set that one aside. And then we find the center here in between our knots. And we cut through again. There we are. Let's do one more here, right between our knots. Oops. There we go. And trim that up. There we go. Now we've got our tie right here. We still want those long strings because we want to have enough left over to attach our pom to whatever we're making when we're done. But if we had gone around a lot more times, we'd have a much fluffier pom, sort of like this guy here. This is what happens when you really fill up those pegs. So after you have cut it in half, you can go ahead and trim it up. If you have a circle or a disc that's about the size of the pom you want, that can be really helpful as a guide to just lay it over. But then you can just take your scissors and do any sort of trimming of any strays or anything. I have found personally with any pom maker I've tried, I've always got a few strays that need a little bit of trimming at the end. But otherwise, you can trim it up. You know, you can get as perfect as you want to or leave it a little bit messy, whatever makes you happy. For the ones on the end, if you've got a little too much here, you can see this side's a lot longer. You can go ahead and just trim that off to be the same. Or if you had really measured it out well, you could just cut those loops right there, and then trim those out until the shape you like as well. So there's always going to be a little bit of trimming with any pom maker, but this tool does allow you to at least get those set up and tied off several at a time. So I forgot to, or rather I neglected to, go ahead and refresh my YouTube page here so I could see your wonderful comments as we're going. So let me make sure I've got that video up here so I can make sure to answer your questions as we go. So hi everybody. Okay, so hi Vicky and Tammy and G Fitz and Linda. Oh, got a couple people from Iowa here, and I'm from Iowa too. So welcome guys. Thanks so much for tuning in from Georgia and New York. These scissors, where did I get these scissors? That's a great question. Where did I get these scissors? Well, I tell you what, I got these scissors as a gift. I had to think about it for a minute. These were a gift from another crocheter. So they are, I don't know where she got them, but they are one of my favorite pairs for sure. So, all right, so that's how we make the poms. Now let's get to the tassels. So we're going to pull this back up, and I'm going to go ahead and leave it long. I'm going to go ahead and put those little pegs in there. And then it starts pretty much exactly the same way. We're going to get our slip knot right there. And if you don't know how to tie a slip knot, you can just use a regular knot. Oh, did I make it too small? There we are. We'll put that on the end like so. And then again, we're just going to start going around and around and around. And the instructions probably say to set up those ties first too, like it says to for the poms, but I never do. I like to get into the winding first. That way I can take it around with me if I have to move it or go answer someone's call or help the kids, I know that I won't have to redo it. I'll just do it the one time. So I'm going to just keep going around and around and around. Doesn't matter which direction as you go, as long as you keep going the same direction once you start. Oops, there we are. Around and around. Where did I get the orange tool? The Red Heart Pom and Tassel Maker. You can get it in some craft stores, and also on the yarnspirations.com website. And if you go to the link in the description for this video, there should be a link right there that takes you right to it. So going around and around and around. I'm going to go a few more times here so we can get a pretty good sized tassel. There we are. All right, I'm going to say that's enough. Push those down out of the way. So we've got some pretty good sized tassels started there. So I will cut this end now and then put my slip knot on this end so that it's nice and secure. Let's get that back on screen. There we are. It's a big tool. I tried to raise the camera up a little bit, but I wanted to make sure you guys could still see it at the same time. There we are. Okay, so we've got our wraps just like we did for our poms. So we need to do our ties again, just like we did again for the poms. This time we just need 2. We're going to be making 2 tassels at once. But in addition to the ties, we also want those loops. Let's look at a tassel real quick here, the anatomy of a tassel. We've got the hangy bits. I don't know the official terms for them. We've got the head. I always think of this as the little head at the top. And then we've got the strings for attaching it to whatever we're making, right? So we need to also make those strings as well as these ties. So let's go ahead and cut 2 more of these. Oops, grabbed the wrong end of the yarn. Let's see. There we are. I love how Red Heart Super Saver always has the center pull well marked for you, but somehow I still managed to try and grab the other one half the time. There we go. All right, so we've got our 4 strings made. Now you can try and do this just sticking it through and hoping for the best, and sometimes that works. It did this time. It worked with this yarn, yay. If it doesn't work, you can use a yarn needle to help you send that through the hole, but we want to send a piece of yarn right down through each of these pegs. That will become the tie at the top of the tassel when we're all done. So let's see if I get lucky again. I had my needle ready to go, so I thought I'd need to use it, but this yarn wants to just feed itself right on through. You can see that hole goes all the way through to the bottom of our tool here. So we'll set those aside for now, just get them out of the way. We've got our other 2, and these we're going to put really close to the end because we saw our tassel. Oops, that's not it. We saw our tassel. We don't want a whole lot of space up there for the head of our tassel, just a bit. Let's see. So let's get that little end out of the way there. This is probably why they tell you to do it first, but again, I would end up bumping them out of the way, so I just like to do them after. There we are. All right, so you can see I put those a lot closer to those ends there. So that's about the size we want the top of that tassel to be. If you made these really big fat tassels, you might want to move them down a little bit so you can have great big heads or fluffy yarn. Totally adjustable, that's the point, right? So first things first, just as before, let's go ahead and tie these strings. And I do want to kind of keep these lined up a little bit more because the size of those tassel heads are going to be, it's going to be a little bit more obvious. We can't trim the head of the tassel down. So again, I'm just going to use that double knot, pull it really tight, flip those yarns around. Oops, that's that end. That's all right, it'll become part of our tassel later. Just want to make sure it stays in there. There we go. And we finally got to some of the color changing too. It's so pretty. Love these colors, very soothing. So we'll do our double knot there. Pull tight again. Then once more, just as before. There we are, nice and tight. Now, same thing at the other end. 2 tassels, got to do 2 ties. I suppose you could use this to make one great big long tassel too. I don't know if I've ever seen a tassel that long, but I guess this would be the perfect tool to make it with. That would be kind of incredible. Amazing. I guess, you know what? That would be great if you were making a, like a little tail for a costume. If you needed to make a costume for your kids. I know my mom used to do those sweatsuit costumes, the you know, with the sweatpants and the sweatshirt, and then you just cut out a belly out of felt and add a tail and ears and things like that. We had a lot of fun with those as kids, so this would be a great tool for making ponytails, literally, if they want to pretend to be a pony, or anything like that. So yeah, lots of creative uses. All right, so finally got that tie tied, right? We've got our 2 tassels almost ready to go. Once again, it's time to pull out those pegs. So we're going to do that really carefully because we want to make sure we don't lose those little strings out of there. So pull one, pull that string on up and through, set it down. Same thing on the other side, and we can get this thing out of the way. Now what we want to do is go ahead and pull those pegs out, but we want to make sure the string stays in that space so that we've got our tie. So you can just hold on to one end of the string there and pull up on that peg. Same thing on the other side. There we are. So those are nice and secure. Now we just gather those up and sort of create that shape there at the top of our tassel. So we can go ahead and do another double knot right up here at the top. And you don't have to tie this one as securely. This isn't really holding the tassel together, so to speak, but you know, you want it nice and tight. So just oops, keep wandering off camera today. There we go. Couple double knots ought to do it. There we are. So you can see it's got a really nice shape there. And if you've got one string that's trying to get funny with you, you can always kind of go through and find that and give it a tug too. So we'll come down to the other side. And right there, we've got our slip knot. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't get that out of the way because I don't want that to show. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull that one right on up and out because that guy doesn't want to be discreet and we want him to be discreet. So I'm actually going to pull that right on out of my tie. There we are. And we'll work him down into the tassel later. Alrighty. So let's go ahead and tie the knot on top of this tassel. There we are. Get that nice and secure again. And then we'll almost be done with our 2 tassels here. We, of course, need to turn them into 2. Right now, we just have one long one. So again, you could find a pair of scissors to make sure you get exactly in the center here today. I'm just going to eyeball it. You could, of course, cut out that whole middle section if you decided, you know what, I've changed my mind, I want shorter tassels. You can trim those up however you like. I'm just going to go ahead and eyeball it here. And then 2, once your tassels are done, if you want to trim them up and make them really even across the bottom, you can, or you can leave them a little messier and funkier if you like, whatever floats your boat. My best tip, if you want to trim them off, I did a video previously about this, but it was actually about fringe, but the same idea stands. If you've got a rotary cutter and a cutting board, it can be a little easier to lay these out and get that really straight cut if you want to. Or you can take your scissors and take your time. Okay, so we have 2 tassels made. But we're not quite done. There's a couple little finishing things we can do besides trimming them up nice at the bottom. We want to address these ends here, the ones we tied them with. Where it is, there it is. There's our 2 little ends of our tie. These stick out a little bit. They just don't blend in with the rest of these because they're not inside the knot itself or inside that that wrap, that tie. So what we can do is go ahead, and for this one you will need a yarn needle, or you could use a crochet hook, or if you have a latch hook, whatever works to grab yarn with. And we just want to send those down underneath that, that band right there so that they go in with the rest. So I like to just kind of bring them, get them on my yarn needle, and then come from the top of the tassel and just pull them right down onto the inside. And those might need trimming too. You know, we didn't measure out the length of our ties so that they'd be exactly the right length at the end, but we have scissors. You're going to need scissors for this. Scissors are not included. There we are. So now we just go ahead and do that with the other one. Send it right down there into the middle. Give it a little tug, and it just disappears. So then, like I say, you can go ahead and trim that up, make it nice and even. I always end up, like I always say, there's a reason I didn't get into cutting hair, because cutting a straight line is not my primary talent. So I like to use a rotary cutter if I want a really, really flat, straight edge to my tassel. But you can use scissors, You may have better scissor skills than I do. So I could be here all day just trimming this up and making a little bit of a mess, but I think you get the idea. It is very quick there. We've made 2 tassels. And if you take your time and measure it, they'll be exactly the same size, but otherwise, you know, same number of strands. This way is great too. If you need to make a couple, you don't have to count out how many wraps you've done. If you're making more than 2, you'd want to count the number of wraps that you do on the tool so that you can get them all the same size eventually, and really kind of make a note of where on the tool you set the tie so that you make sure that those heads of your tassels are all the same size. But otherwise, this tool is really such a great way to just make a couple of tassels exactly the same, which is always a challenge for me, or a bunch of poms. If you want to make a bunch of poms, you could absolutely switch up the yarn halfway through to make custom ones and custom color combinations, or use a self-striping yarn like this, or, you know, really any yarn, and you're going to get a really great, fun look. So thank you so much, everybody. You guys are so nice. Virginia and Alicia and Sheila and Dee Wolf and Sheila. Another Sheila. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this video demo helped you use your Red Heart Pom and Tassel Maker, or maybe convince you to give one a try yourself. Let's go ahead and switch cameras one more time. There we go. Didn't want to make anybody seasick. All right. So thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I hope you enjoyed this demonstration. If you want to see some other cool things that are happening on Moogly right now, again, links in the description for the tools, for the yarn, and for the post that went up on Moogly today. Before I did this, I went live on Facebook and I talked about all the latest Moogly news, events, and giveaways. And so, yeah, check that out if you want to see what else is going on and enter some fun giveaways. And otherwise, I will see you guys next time, and I hope you have a great day. Bye, everybody.